Hello, I'm Asha Nayaswami, and I'll be sharing from my soon-to-be published book, Swami Kriyananda, Lightbearer. It's a year-by-year chronicle of the 45 years of my life that I spent in very close association with Swami Kriyananda. It'll be available by the end of May 2019, which is where we are now. I'm just going to pull a section out now from 1975 of the book. In the early years of Ananda especially, the question of Ananda's legitimacy as an expression of Master was a constant subject of conversation. Self-realization had the position that they were the sole authorized channel for Master's teaching, and Swamiji having been expelled from SRF in 1962, all of that is chronicled in this book, they let it be known that he was not a true representative of Master, which was a difficult position for people who were attracted to Ananda but were concerned about SRF's lack of support for what we were doing. SRF wanted Swamiji to keep silent on the question of the controversy, but Swamiji himself felt that it wasn't fair to people who wanted to join Ananda for them not to know that the other branch of Master's work did not approve of Ananda itself. He felt they needed to know enough to make an informed decision. Often people were turning their lives completely upside down to join Ananda, and they had to come in with open eyes. So here's from 1975. Swamiji received a letter from a man who had been thinking of joining Ananda, but first wrote to Self-Realization Fellowship asking their advice. Their answer caused him to doubt Swamiji's sincerity as a disciple and the validity of Ananda itself. He asked, "Would Yogananda approve of Ananda under your leadership? If not, shouldn't you question your motives?" Perhaps there was something in his letter that inspired Swamiji to answer. Maybe it was just time to speak up. He wrote, "A master's blessings are like the broadcasts of a radio station. Even one who owns the biggest and best radio can have no monopoly on the broadcasts. Every disciple can and should try to attune himself to his guru's inner guidance and not seek direction only outwardly. Master himself always trained us to seek his guidance primarily within ourselves." Swamiji then acknowledged the dangers of going it alone. The true disciple, he wrote, is not one who says, "I'll do whatever the guru says, but I refuse to cooperate with his close disciples." Swamiji said, "I wanted with all my heart to cooperate with Master's closer disciples, but I found myself denied all opportunities to give such cooperation. I was left with no recourse but to seek all my guidance directly from Master. For my life remained dedicated to him. I had nothing else to live for but to serve him. No doors opened for me except those which led to Ananda. It took many miracles for Ananda to come into being. Master would have needed to withhold only one of them for us to have failed utterly. I don't blame those who think of me as beyond the pale. Most don't know how desperately I tried to remain within the pale. They imagine I simply refuse to be guided. Everything serious I have undertaken during these 14 years since my separation from SRF has been started only after deep prayer, in many cases over a period of years, for Master's guidance. I have learned to be very impartial in my readiness to accept whatever guidance I receive from him. Ananda is not my imposition on Master's will." Left as I was completely on my own, I have had to develop a kind of independence, which I myself would generally counsel people against. I haven't any doubt that Master himself engineered my dismissal, not for anyone's punishment, but because he had other things to accomplish through me. Why then should I blame anyone? I wonder rather at the greatness of Master's love. Surely I am not worthy of such great blessings as he has bestowed upon me. When I started writing this book, the whole question of the long history between Swamiji Ananda and Self-Realization Fellowship, I really wasn't sure how much I should include. In many ways, the principal actors in that drama have all left the planet. And it's a fascinating story, and it's extraordinarily instructive, but it's not a pretty story. Disciples of one master disagreeing with themselves. I actually thought for a moment that I might not have to deal with it. But this book is chronological, and when I got to 1972, I met Swami in 69, I moved to Ananda in 1971, so we were way at the beginning of what has really turned out to be a big book. In 1972, Swamiji returned to India for the first time in 10 years. Everything about that trip was filled with enormous significance for him, because in 1962 he had been expelled from SRF and actually expelled from India and prevented from returning for 10 years. So there I was right at the beginning of the book, and I had to stop and insert a chapter 1962 and explain all that had happened then. And then for the rest of the book, it was simply a theme. Now, on one hand, it could be taken as a personal story, which there were actors in the story, and all of us who at Ananda were swept up into 12 years of litigation. It was a karma for us too. I mean, it was an adventure that we had to go through. It was an important rite of passage, is the word I want to use. But the impersonal meaning of it is more significant, and it's why I felt Swamiji guiding me to speak about it in the way he wanted me to speak about it, because there are just important principles involved. It's a question of an institutional definition of the lineage of spiritual authority or an individual. Self-Realization Fellowship holds that they are the sole authorized channel for Master's work, and that the president of SRF is the spokesperson and the deciding voice in any question about what Master's will, intentions, past, present, and future. Swami Kriyananda, and therefore all of Ananda, holds to the time-honored principle that every disciple has the same equal potential to attune himself to the Guru and directly receive guidance. Having the same equal potential does not mean that everybody has the same state of realization. So respect for spiritual authority is inherent in any path of discipleship. But an individual's ability to have a direct relationship with the Guru and then be a true and a clear expression of the inspiration he receives, to Swamiji's way of understanding, is fundamental to the path of spiritual realization. The only role an institution plays is to provide a focal point for individuals to deepen their individual attunement. That's a very short answer. It's described much more through the many pages of this book, and that's why it appears in 1975 and all through this story. And I hope that all of you will find in it the same clarity, inspiration, and wonderful real life understanding of how spirituality is expressed in this world. So God bless you.